Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. And one of the names that comes up repeatedly and more often these days is Holosun, makers of a full line. We're joined right now by Josh Ericson from Holosun. Hey, Josh, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on today. Appreciate it.
You bet. If you would, start off, maybe tell people a little bit about Holosun, where it came from, and what it is.
Yeah, so we're coming up on 10 years now. We were headquartered in California, so we've been enjoying the sun and coming up with just fun, new, innovative optics. I think the thing that really put us on the map was probably a lot of our solar features and just kind of building sights that are exceptionally durable. Our 509T series has been just widely accepted now by different police agencies, and we're just working on trying to really push that innovation. I think if anybody was paying attention during SHOT Show, we had our new thermals and night vision units that we're starting to come out with, and so yeah, we're just really focused on innovation over here and just coming up with great new ways to make things easier for people to put red dots on their pistols and rifles.
What's the process? How do you come up with the idea for a new optic or a new type of optic?
Yeah, I think, obviously our engineers are wizards, man. They come up with some of the most creative and innovative stuff I've ever seen. Every time we have new products coming in, I'm always amazed at how just the ingenuity of what we're doing. But I think the thing that really drives our products forward is the fact that we're a big shooting culture within the company. I mean, anytime we go out to the range for our weekly training sessions, we have, 10 to 15 guys out there. We're all out there shooters, experienced guys. We try to take our time and train a lot. And I think that product feedback just kind of goes right back into the optics. And so we're just trying to make the best stuff we possibly can. And it helps that we all kind of understand what the heck we're doing. So
that makes such a huge difference. I mean, and you've been around long enough to know it. I've certainly seen companies making optics for firearms, and you realize there's actually few people and almost no one at the top of these companies that actually shoots. They just make gadgets to go on guns, and it really shows.
Yeah. I think that's been one of the things for us that we really kind of, it's put us a leg up against the competition, I guess I would say, is just the fact that anytime a new product comes out, we're out on the range, we're testing it, we're putting it through its paces, giving feedback and notes, and really just trying to refine everything as much as we possibly can before it gets to the consumers, and not making our consumers our beta testers, so to speak. We kind of just try to focus on making it right the first time. Turns out if you give your consumers what they're asking for and you execute it well, usually they're pretty happy.
There you go. All right, so clearly, I mean, we started off with battery-powered, I'm talking about red dot sights on pistols primarily at this point, and I'm seeing that you have a number of models that also have solar power. Is that either or? Is it in addition to, it can have both?
Yeah, so kind of there's two different schools of thought with this. So our more traditional sights, like our 507C and our 509T, they have solar panels on top. And the way that I kind of explain it to people is it's more of a fail-safe or a pass-through system. It's one of those things where if for some reason your battery dies and you show up to a class, if you're outside, you're still going to have more than enough ambient light to run that optic for the class until you can get a battery swapped out or if somebody doesn't have one. So that's kind of just a fail-safe system. If you can pull the battery tray out of our EPS units and still use the sight just fine without even having a battery inside of it. And so for us, it's just kind of an additional layer of safety. But we've also come out with a whole new series of sights where the battery is actually built into the unit itself. And so the solar energy from the sun is going to be charging up the battery that's inside of it. And the way that I kind of explain it to people is it's, you've got basically a 20,000-hour gas tank inside of this optic. Anytime that you're using it and sunlight is hitting it, it's going to keep topping up that gas tank. And so, with 20,000 hours, you'd have to be shooting in the dark for nearly 2 years before you ever have to worry about charging up that unit again, which, I mean, I don't know anybody out there who's doing vampire hunting as a business profession, but, it's probably not going to be a concern too much for most guys. Simply going out to the range, once or twice a year and getting light on that panel is going to be more than enough to keep that battery topped up. And we've seen those units be, very innovative because once you build the battery into the unit, then you can really slim the profile down and, make them just a lot more, designed for the specific guns.
Sure. You're not having to build around a battery.
Right, yeah, because a removable battery tray, it takes up quite a bit of space. You got to have, a bunch of areas for what type of battery you're using, the contacts, the whole little tray system. And so that's how we're able to really shrink the overall profile of these SCS units. And then we've also kind of really been working on designing them specifically for different guns. I think we started out with the Glock series, obviously very popular, and so we've matched the slide serrations on the Gen 5, and it just looks great. It looks like a factory option that was built for the gun to begin with, and not sort of an afterthought.
I love the idea of basically what you've got is a trickle charger on your battery that just is running all the time to keep it topped off.
Yeah, and then if there's more than enough ambient light coming in, it doesn't even use the battery system at all. It just puts it in a standby mode and says, hey, I've got enough light coming on the solar panel. I can just power the optic without even using the battery.
One of the challenges that I find that people run into, they decide, they get a pistol that's set up for, optics cut, and now they got to figure out, how do I mount it? What kind of plates do I need? All the rest of it. Is that something that is improving right now?
I would say that we're seeing definitely an improvement across the board from different manufacturers. I think really kind of the difficulty is that there's no one ubiquitous footprint for all of these different slides. There's a lot of different slide widths from your 1911 all the way up to your full-size PDPs and your Glock 17s. And so the differences in those is really what kind of dictates what footprints you can put on there. And we've seen this kind of happen as well, too, with some of the smaller pistols. But I think the industry is kind of realizing, hey, we can streamline things if we go a certain way. And so we're seeing a little bit more of a simpler process to get things mounted. The new Echelon pistol comes with all kinds of different pins and adapters and things like that to make it a little simpler for people. But I would say it's still a very big hurdle for the industry right now, where we get a lot of calls that people say, hey, I have this gun, I have this optic, what plate system do I need to be able to fit this on there? And it's usually kind of just, having to find aftermarket solutions for some of that stuff.
You guys make red dots with both green and red reticles. In lasers, I know that they say, well, you can see the green easier because of the way our eye works. But with an optic sight on your pistol, is there an advantage of one over the other?
I don't know that I would say that there's an advantage necessarily. Just kind of really, the unfortunate thing, I guess, or maybe fortunate, is, everyone's eyes are kind of very unique to them as individuals. It's kind of like your own little fingerprint necessarily. And so looking through a green reticle or looking through a red reticle, your eye just might prefer one over the other. Now, when it comes to the science side of it, yes, technically speaking, our eyes do pick up green better than any other color in the spectrum. But some people's eyes, the green will become, if you have an astigmatism, sometimes the green can help. Sometimes your eyes prefer red. And I usually tell people, if you can get down to your local gun store, pick up both, and actually get a chance to look through them, you'll find out very quickly what your eyes like. For some guys, it's a training situation. You come from the military, you just spend a lot of time shooting red dots, your eyes looking for red, and so they just kind of prefer to keep that consistency.
Do you have any tips for somebody transitioning, getting their first red dot sight?
Yeah, I definitely. For the first red dot sight, I would say that you really can't go wrong. Depending upon what size of a pistol, you can't go wrong with red or green. If you get one and you're like, oh, I think I might want to swap this out for the other one to kind of see what that looks like. We have a very simple process for that. But I would say that if you're trying to get a pistol and you want to put a red dot on there for your first time ever and start training with it, I would recommend getting one of our multi-reticle system models. And the reason for this is because it comes with it's adjustable, so you can kind of pick and choose what reticle you want. So you have a 2 MOA dot and you have a 32 MOA circle. And the cool thing about the 32 MOA circle is that we have hash marks at the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position. So as you work on presenting the pistol and getting on target, a lot of the times the first hurdle is, hey, I can't find the dot. I'm not used to this. I'm used to iron sights, right?
Right.
And so this MRS reticle system, it helps you understand, hey, where is the dot falling in? Where is it coming in from what angles? Oh, I keep consistently seeing the dot dropping in from the 3 o'clock position. I'm having a struggle with getting it set up. That gives you just a little bit of feedback to understand what you're doing. You can make the corrections. And then once you kind of get used to it, you can just turn it off and just run the 2 MOA dot only, which I think is what I see a lot of people doing these days.
Interesting. Okay. And and there's a transition, to be made when you start, moving from the irons to the optic. And I always tell people, look, just work on the presentation. And I like to start with the dot, the reticle on the target, and then break it back down to the ready position, and then back out and then down. And as opposed to trying to come from the draw and out, now I'm waving the gun around and trying to find it. I want to start with the target, with everything set up on the target. Okay, that's what it feels like. Now break it back down, take it off target, and move it back up.
Yeah, I think that's a very great way to do it. I think another thing, too, is that So there's, depending upon your stances and your styles of shooting and maybe some of the training stuff that we've seen throughout the industry, is that you really want to try to kind of lock your head in a very specific position and bring the gun to your eyes. And we see a lot of people where they'll bring the gun up, they don't see the dot, and they start dipping their head down, kind of fishing for it, trying to find it with their eyes, and they'll keep their hand in the same spot. And that's definitely not what you want to be doing.